Hi and welcome back to Sahara TV. During 2008, Zimbabwe went through violent elections, and at that time the elections were disputed in the sense that Tsvangirai of Morgan Tsvangirai, who's now Prime Minister in the unity government, had won the elections on the MDC side, and ZANU-PF was also disputing the results. So SADC stepped in and created what they called coalition government, which brought both parties together. And this marriage of convenience, as it's sometimes called, has not been a smooth sailing marriage. And there's been squabbles, there've been fights, and right now Zimbabwe is going through elections actually in a couple of days. And when those elections are supposed to take place, there's also been stories about, oh, we need reforms because the press needs to be freed. People need to be free to express what they have to say. And the security forces have also been questioned because they have been partisan and supporting ZANU-PF. So anyway, SADC has also stepped in to make sure that, you know, there is order. So right now we have Lynsey Chutel, who's a South African journalist actually on the ground in Harare, and she's going to give us a breakdown of exactly what's going on right now in the wake of these elections. Lynsey, how are you, and welcome.
Hi Fungai, thanks for having me again.
Okay, so now we know that it's 3 days before these elections, and we have observers on the ground from the AU. In fact, the chairwoman of the AU, the former Minister of South Africa, Zuma, she's there, Dlamini Zuma, she's on the ground, and there's been observers who've been monitoring these the electoral process. So can you tell us now where everything stands?
So we arrived here on Thursday, and so far it's been quite peaceful. I've been in Harare, and colleagues of mine have been in Bulawayo, and it's been peaceful up until, it still remains quite peaceful. We were in the townships today, just outside Harare, and what we're seeing is that people have been able to have rallies, you know, without any interference from the police or from opposing political parties. We saw that Morgan Tsvangirai had his rally in a ZANU-PF stronghold in Chinoy, and he managed to managed to go off peacefully, as the same with Robert Mugabe with his rally up in Bulawayo. The tricky part now is that we're worrying that, you know, it's Saturday evening here, and the worry is that the peace might not last much longer, because the MDC was made to hold its last rally on Monday in Harare, and the police have just recently released a statement saying that they will no longer allow the MDC to hold their main rally, known here as their star rally, because there aren't enough police officers. Now, the excuse itself seems unlikely because they've known about this for quite some time, but the MDC has said that it will be going to court, so we'll see what the outcome will be on Monday.
Okay, so you have obviously witnessed that there's been peace and people have been actually holding these rallies in peace without any interference. And we've been seeing a lot of color. ZANU-PF has its, I think it's yellow and green.
Yes,
and
yellow and green.
And then MDC's got the red. And people have been wearing their leaders' faces on their chests proudly. So that means the observers on the ground are not reporting. There's been a report about some ballots that were found in the garbage, you know, in the dustbin. And these ballots were for the MDC. So how true is that, and what's the report about that?
Okay, so what's been happening is that people have been able to just show their support freely. This didn't happen in 2008. We saw earlier today, I was in a shopping center, and you saw people wearing an MDC red beret. I was talking to someone who was wearing a Robert Mugabe t-shirt with his face on it, and there was no animosity between the two. And people have been allowed to show their political affiliation, and both groups have been allowed to campaign. Of course, ZANU-PF has got more money. They've got a massive election campaign. You can just see by the sheer numbers of posters on the walls, you see Robert Mugabe's face everywhere, and Morgan Tsvangirai is just not as common, not as often. I saw that headline this morning on the Post, and the argument is that that the MDC has been stuffing ballots and that the MDC is planning to rig that election. Whether that is true, it hasn't been confirmed yet, and we haven't heard anything from the observers. What we saw was on Thursday. The AU chair, Mrs. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, was here, and she said that she believes that the polls will go through regularly and that it will be a free and fair election. She also said that she had a meeting with all parties involved. However, the MDC held their press conference just a few hours later, calling Mrs. Dlamini Zuma a liar, saying that they didn't have a clear meeting with her and that it was a group meeting and that they didn't have a one-on-one, and they weren't given the space to express their concerns about the election, especially with what they believe might be a vote rigging on the part of ZANU-PF. So what the allegations about ballot stuffing may be an example of ZANU-PF and MDC mudslinging. We haven't had any confirmations as yet.
Okay, otherwise, how is just the mood generally around the city? Is it quiet, somber? Is it tense? Can you feel the tension?
Well, Harare in 2013 is not Harare in 2008. You know, you see shops are stocked up, you see people moving around, and there is a lot more freedom than there used to be. But there's also not that excitement about the election, and that's what's sad. Yes, you do see rallies, and you do see pockets of excitement, and you do hear the adverts on the television. But people in the street, you know, there's not... there's not a tension as such, and also not necessarily an excitement. I was speaking to some people yesterday in the township, and what they were saying is that this is the last chance for their voices to be heard. So they want the election to go through peacefully, so they can just put their X's on that ballot.
Okay, so when you attended some of these rallies, how was the outcome, the response for whoever? Which side did you go? Was it ZANU-PF or was it the MDC rallies that you attended?
Well, what we did was I attended a smaller rally for a senator in the township, and it was quite vibrant. Although what is interesting to note is that senator had actually bussed in a number of youth representatives. So I'm not sure if those people, you know, there was excitement, but I'm not sure if those people were actually from that particular area. Of course, they wouldn't confirm or deny that. Then with Robert Mugabe's rally, I was following that quite closely in Bulawayo, and his speech was interesting in the sense that, you know, he named all the problems that are happening in Zimbabwe, and, you know, the economy is quite high on the list, and he was saying, you know, that Bulawayo itself is usually an MDC stronghold, and Bulawayo has seen sort of a halt in industrialization and not much opportunity for people, and also Zimbabwe has the highest unemployment rate. This didn't really, you know, and what he suggested was that ZANU-PF strategy would be indigenization, which is something that they've been trying since 2008, actually much earlier than that, since 2000, possibly 1999, when you first saw the farm grabs. And what's tricky with that is that, you know, he didn't get that response from people because I think people were thinking, you know, he's had 30 years to do this. But he did get a response from people when he spoke about gay marriage. And that really got the crowd going. What he was saying is that Morgan Tsvangirai can't be trusted as a leader to lead Zimbabwe because he backs gay marriage. And this really got the crowd going.
Oh. So
yeah.
Now, there are people that have been saying that the President Mugabe, almost 90 years old now, cannot be the right candidate to vote for, you know, this is going to be his 33rd term.
Yeah.
You know, no, it's 33rd year actually in power.
Yeah, 33rd year he's been in power since 1990.
The reasoning has been that his message is still, you know, that liberation war hero, somebody who led the country from the clasps of colonialism and to freedom, and he's still using the same message that the West is our enemy.
He is,
and then on the one hand, there's a very high unemployment rate. The youth are unemployed, and do you think that the youth are still interested in listening to that kind of rhetoric?
That's what's interesting. For example, in the urban areas, the MDC is quite popular, and people are quite open about how they feel about the MDC, and that they say they are the party that they choose. And Mugabe actually addressed his age in his rally today. He said that age should not be an issue and that people should be given a chance. I quite frankly find that ironic because, I mean, he's had a chance for 33 years. So we'll see if that works. So what he does in the rural areas, where with youth there, is that he pushes a policy of agriculture, and where he says to people that we are the key to you owning your own land. And I think that's a very powerful statement to give to the youth. That statement doesn't necessarily sway the voters in the urban areas, but it definitely does in rural areas.
Okay. Now, there have been also reports about some MDC members being attacked. In fact, one was reported in some media that he got attacked whilst he noticed some people ripping up posters in Hatfield. And then when he tried to confront them, there were a bunch of like 10 ZANU-PF youth who got into a minibus and sped off, but then stopped and tried to attack him, which he calls an assassination attempt. Have they have those kind of reports been sprouting up from all over?
That's the only report we've heard so far. So far, everything has been quite peaceful. We haven't heard anything just yet. There was a little bit of concern today with Chinhoyi, for example, because Chinhoyi has seen some violence when Morgan Tsvangirai went there, but he was able to go there and bring his policy of renewal, saying that the MDC would be there, and that wasn't met. There were no signs of violence at all. But what we are worried about is on Monday, if once the MDC goes to court and if they're not allowed to hold their rally, we'll see what the voters will react to.
Yeah. Now, I was going to ask about, just lost my train of thought here. I was going to ask about, hopefully, like, you feel the tension that if anything goes wrong, people are going to respond. Have there been also signs of people feeling like they're being forced to go to these rallies? Because some of the footage and the pictures we've been seeing, both parties, the stadiums have been really, really packed. But then there have also been reports that people have been frog marched to these stadiums, and some actually being intimidated to go there. So have you sensed this? And if you did you ever speak to any of the observers on the ground? And if they did, what did they say?
Well, what's happened was, I can't confirm any intimidation personally, but what we do know is that they are busing people into various rallies. For example, Joyce Mujuru was meant to have a rally yesterday, I think, and I think people were bussed in there as well, because there aren't that many ZANU supporters where she was having her rally in an area in Harare. And what's really interesting also is that observers haven't noticed that SADC observers and the AU observers have been giving the thumbs up so far. The ZEC, which is the Zimbabwean Electoral Commission, is also giving the thumbs up. So this is where, some questions are definitely arising. If people are being bussed in, why are observers not noting this? And is this something that observers perhaps don't feel is necessarily indicative of a vote, of rigging, or this remains to be seen.
Okay, and finally, how have you guys been feeling as members of the press? Have you been able to freely walk around, ask questions, go wherever you want to go?
When I work in broadcast as well, and whenever we take out the camera, there's a lot of skittishness and nervousness from the public about, why are you filming me, where are you from? And what we also have to do is we have to carry around one of these at all times. I'll just pull that into shot. That is my accreditation from the Zimbabwe Media Commission, as well as additional accreditation from the Zimbabwean Electoral Commission. And we have to carry this at all times because we may be stopped. And in the event that we're not carrying our accreditation, we can be arrested and detained immediately. So that's something that journalists are really carrying around with us. We also, what we do know, for example, is with the local media, is that the ZBC is quite clearly biased towards ZANU-PF. That's the state broadcaster, Zimbabwean broadcaster. But what we also see is that you have a lot of online media. And we see that media coming from inside Zimbabwe seems to be censoring itself to an extent, not publishing necessarily sensationalist argument, not necessarily publishing sensationalist articles. And we also see that if you do looking for information about intimidation, etc., that comes from publications in the diaspora that usually come out of the United Kingdom or in South Africa.
Okay. Anyway, thank you very much, Lynsey. This was Lynsey Chutel. She's reporting directly from Harare, and she's actually giving us a breakdown and an update of exactly what's going on in Harare in the wake of these elections that will take place in 3 days. That will be on Wednesday, July the 30th. So stay tuned. Right now we're going to talk to Alex Kaba, who's going to discuss about an attempt on his life by Hamza Al-Mustafa. Following that, it will be a Sahara Talkback that is via Skype. So if you want to join into our segment to speak to us, please reach us on SaharaTV, Sahara.tv. That's the Skype ID that we're going to be using to talk back with us. So stay tuned and more programming.